All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome to another Farming Simulator 25 tutorial video. I am the Ultra Farmer, and today I'm going to go over what I consider to be some of the best implements and pieces of equipment in the base game of Farming Simulator 25. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of different mods that you can get, whether you're on PC or console. But if you're just looking base game, maybe you're just getting started in this game, or maybe you've been playing it for a little bit and you're still just kind of wondering, like, what are some of the best pieces of equipment? Some seem more expensive than others. I don't really understand all the horsepowers and maybe working with associated. What are some of the best things that I should be looking for? That's what we're going to go over today. I'm going to give you my kind of list of pieces of equipment or implements that I use in just about all of my gameplay series, and I'm always looking for to come through on the sales to get on a discount. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into our first piece of equipment. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to talk to you about today is tractors, both the small, medium, and large. There's just about no scenario where I ever really recommend any of the small tractors. Now, that being said, if you're doing something like grape farming or you're trying to do olives, then you're obviously going to need one of these small tractors because something like this Fendt, as you can tell, it is very narrow and it is meant for a grape farm, for an olive farm, to go in between the vineyard rows and do work within that type of farm. But outside of that, basically all of these small tractors I don't really think are worth the money. And the reason for that is you don't really get very much horsepower for the cost. So let's just take this Fendt, for example, this Fendt Vario 300. If you look down here, your starting horsepower, if this tractor is 113 horse with a maximum of 142 horse. So what that means, if you're unfamiliar, is if you come into this tractor and you come up to the engine setup, the 311 Vario, you're starting with 113 horse. Now, if I click once to the left, this actually brings it to its max horsepower. It's an extra 15 grand, so you'd be paying 149,500 and you're getting 142 horsepower. That's not very much tractor for 150 grand. It really isn't. Because if you go into the medium tractors, let's go back one more and go into the medium tractors and just look at these Challenger or this ACGO 8010 series, and you go down to the same thing for 58,000, you start at 160 horsepower. So you're almost $100,000 cheaper and you're already at 160 horsepower, and that other tractor is at 142. If you bring this one up to its max horsepower, you're now paying 83,000 and you're getting 225 horsepower and 10.3 tons. This is just a much better tractor and just much better bang for your buck than basically any of the small tractors. If you really want to use one of the small tractors, maybe you're trying to set some sort of a challenge for yourself, I honestly think the best one is going to be the John Deere 3650. You get 116 horse, which really isn't that much, but you're only paying 45,000 for it. So really, if I had to pick, I would maybe do that. The next would be this Dutes. I mean, you're paying 95 and you get 126 horse, but really you're paying double to get an extra 10 horsepower. I mean, if I was really picking any small one, I would pick this JD 3650. The medium tractors, there's two things I want to talk about with the medium tractors. These two right here are a very good option. They really are. And even if you put the biggest engine in there, the most it's going to cost you is just under 84,000, and 225 horsepower for 84,000 is really good. The only issue with these two tractors is that it just depends on your gameplay. They don't have a front PTO. You only get front weights on this thing. Same with the yellow Challenger one. Just going to go back. No front PTO, just a front weight. If you're not doing anything where you need a front PTO, that's fine. If you do, then my next best tractor on this list would be this Dutes Far AgroStar, what is it, 8.31, not 83.1. This tractor, you get 230 horse for 89,500, and you get a front PTO. You can obviously add a little bit wider tires if you want, but then it'll cost you a little bit extra. But this is a really good all-around tractor. In just about all the gameplay series that I do, I'm always looking for this tractor. 230 horse, 89,000. If you can get it on sale in the sales, it's just a bargain. That is a really, really good value tractor. Now, as far as the large tractors go, there gets to a point where it kind of doesn't matter what you get. I mean, if you want to, if you've got the money and you're just kind of doing an unrealistic series, or maybe you've played lots and you've got millions to spare, any of these big tractors, I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can get this one for 778 horse or 691 horse. There's only a couple implements in the game where you really need that much horsepower. But of all the large tractors, my absolute favorite one where I think you get the most value is this Fendt Vario 1000. Because if you take this tractor and you put the biggest engine in it that you can, you get a 517 horsepower tractor for 415 grand. It's actually insane. You don't really get that with anything else. Like, you really don't. Even this tractor right here is 405,000, and the max you could get is 458 horse, and that's just with the stock engine in it. If you bump it up, you're paying 460, and you're still only getting 458. Now, 458 is a lot of horsepower for a tractor, but if you really want the best kind of value, I would say go with this Fendt Vario. Again, if you can get it on sale, I'll probably say that a bunch of times, you're going to really be ahead, and it's a really good tractor to look for. 517 horse. There's very few things in the game that you can't drag around with this tractor. Okay, the next thing that I want to look at as we go down through the list, there's not really much in loaders that really matter. I mean, if you go through and you want one of the telehandlers between 139 and 141, I mean, just pick the one that you want. There isn't really a better one, and that kind of goes with all of this, with forklifts, skid steers, front loaders. There's not really a best one. I want to go down now to trailers. Now, the biggest thing that I always look for in trailers is the capacity at which the trailer will hold and the amount of money. That's really what I look for the most. There's one other thing that I look for, and I'll kind of get into that. But if you just go on that basic principle without having to go through and look at all of them, I'll tell you what I think is the best trailer. If you're just kind of starting a farm and you don't need anything very specific, this Brantner PowerFlex, the double XL PowerFlex, 26,000 bucks, and you almost get 20,000 liters it'll hold. It's a really, really good value. Like, if you go to this trailer right beside it, it's 40,000, and the smallest that it'll hold, which is the base, is 18.5 cubes or 1,000 liters. So if you wanted to go in here and get the extension, it would be another 3,500 bucks to get you to 24,000. I just think of all the trailers, this one is kind of your best bang for your buck. Now, again, if you have a huge farm and you need something that's like, much big like this Krone, you're kind of looking at a different bracket, obviously. But even at that, if you come down to this Brantner, 65,000, it'll hold 30,000. It's a pretty good option. Pretty good option. Now, the caveat to this is this trailer, you are not going to be able to back it up. It has one of those articulating front axles. It's meant for really tight turns, or if you're connecting more trailers together, because you could connect a couple of these trailers together. So you're never really going to be able to back this trailer up. If you want, like, this trailer right here is going to be a little bit better. It's bigger. It costs more money. It's 50 grand. Now, this is with the extension. If you go without the extension, it's 20,000 liters. It is more than that other one. But the way these axles are, you can back this trailer up. And just, I don't know. For me, that matters. I'm always backing my trailers up. I'm always parking them in sheds or somewhere. So I like a trailer that I can back up. That's just me personally. So I would really say between these two, if you're just kind of on a small, medium farm, they're going to do basically everything that you need. You get good size for the value. They're all around pretty good trailers. Now, the next implements that I'd like to talk to you about are cultivators and disc harrows. Now, these are going to be things that you're using quite a bit. If you're doing grain farming and stuff like that, these are going to be something that you use basically after every harvest. Depending if you have your settings on, you might have to plow fields every now and then. And we can talk about plows in a second, but first let's just talk about cultivators and disc harrows. Now, if I'm going to be doing field prep with a cultivator, I do the same thing. I'm always looking at what's going to be the best kind of like horsepower needed for kind of the biggest working with. And what I mean by that is, if you look at these implements right here, so let's just start with this eco cultivator. It requires 110 horsepower and it's 3 meters working width. Okay. And if you keep going through all of these and you start just taking note of that, what you'll get to is what I think is the best cultivator in the game, unless you need something just massive. and that's this Prolander 7500, because you get a working width of 7.5 meters and it only requires 190 horsepower. So that Dutes Far tractor that I showed you in the first one, that medium one, lime green kind of medium tractor, will pull this cultivator very easily. It's 50,000 bucks. If you go to this next one right beside it, it is the same working width, but this one requires 440 horse. So this one's the 30 grand more. It's the same width of field that you'll clear, and you require a large tractor to do it. This one, 7.5 meters, 190 horsepower. Of all the cultivators, this is really going to be your kind of best bang for your buck, the best value for the money that you're spending. You can use a smaller tractor to get it done. So throughout your whole farm, it's less cost to clear fields with a cultivator like this. Now, the only caveat that I would say is between cultivators and disc harrows, I slightly prefer a disc harrow. And the reason for that is very simple. If you come to this one, the Dalbo Power Chain 800, this has an 8-meter working width, so it's half a meter bigger than that other cultivator, which doesn't really matter. 180 horsepower. Again, the other one was 190. It doesn't really matter. But this one pulls at 11 miles an hour. Again, these cultivators pull at 9 miles an hour, so it's not the end of the world. If you've seen one of these come through on the stores and it was cheap, that's great, grab it. It doesn't really matter. But if I could prefer one or the other, I usually go with disc harrows. It'll prep the field the same. It doesn't give the fields a plowed state, so really they do the same thing. This one is cheaper. It's only 43,000. It does a half a meter, a little bit more, but it'll pull faster with good horsepower, good width. All in all, between cultivators and disc harrows, I always lean to this one right here. And then moving up, if I want something a little bit bigger, I go to this one. It's 330 horse, which sometimes you can get away with doing just 300 if you have a tractor that's right around 300, but it's 10.5 meters wide. It'll pull at 11 miles per hour. This is also a good option. But if I can, I'll pick this. If not, and this Prolander 75 comes in, I think this is a really good option as well. Okay, so moving right along, I'm going to work now on some of the best seeders and kind of planters that you can look for within the game. So the first planter, sorry, let's go into seeders first. The first thing I look at with seeders is, do you need to have a seeder that is doing both fertilizing and seeding at the same time? So if you go look through these, you'll notice that every now and then you have your symbol. This is the symbol, the green one, for seeds. And if I move on over, this also has the symbol for fertilizer. So this planter, or this seeder rather, it will both seed and fertilize at the same time. I then look at the horsepower. So it's 110 horsepower to pull this thing, and it'll work at 4.6 meters. All in all, if you're starting out a farm and you need a really good budget seeder, this Great Plains Solid Stand 1500 is a really good choice. It'll plant, it'll fertilize, it's really low horsepower, so you can use just about any tractor in the game. You could even use that John Deere 3650 small tractor if you wanted to, and it'll get the job done. It's almost 5 meters wide. I mean, it's not the widest planter out there, but for 49,000 bucks, it's really just such a good option. It really is. This one is only a 3-meter working width. It doesn't do fertilizer, and it also requires more horsepower. Now, if you're going down and if you don't mind needing to fertilize at the same time, which you really don't, if that's something you think, oh, I really want that to happen, it's fine. You can just use a fertilizer spreader. You can get a really good one for 20 grand or an even better budget one for 2 grand, which we'll get into. You don't really need a planter that can do both. If you can afford more, like if you've got a farm that you're building and you can afford a little bit more, or one of these comes in the store, I personally think you should look for this Lemkin. Again, we go back down to the same parameters. This requires 180 horsepower, so you can use a medium tractor to pull it, and it does a 12-meter working width. It's a really, really great option. It does only seed. You don't fertilize with this, but this is just such a great option for the medium-sized farms. 12-meter working width is great. You can plant some pretty big fields relatively quick. This is also another really great option. So just me personally, I think when I'm doing it, I'm looking for this Lemkin on the sales, and I'm also looking for this Great Plain if I'm starting out. Now, when it comes to planters, I'm using the exact same thought process. You'll notice that this is just the same thing that I look at with basically each implement or piece of equipment. What am I getting? Well, if I go through and I look at something like this, it's 133,000. Okay, so what do I get with this? Well, it'll plant, We've got our seed down here. It'll fertilize, so that's great, with a 4 meter working width. Okay, well, that's great, but 133,000, that's pretty expensive, and I need 200 horse to pull it. What's this Amazon? Okay, it does the same thing. It plants, it fertilizes, it has a 4.5 meter working width. Now, its tank is smaller. It doesn't hold as much as this one that's 133,000, but is it really worth almost 3 times less to get, or 3 times more to buy this one? Like, I personally don't think so. For a really budget farm, if you're starting out, this little 49,500 planter to do corn or sunflowers or cotton or maybe beans is a perfect option. 1,580 liter tank is fine. 4.5 meter working width isn't the best, but it'll plant a pretty decent sized field in a relatively short amount of time. I mean, if you're doing like a 10 or 20 acre field, you're going to want something a little bit bigger. If you want something a little bit bigger, my next option is this Optima RS. Again, it's 89,500. It will seed, it'll fertilize, it does all the same, plants as all these other planters. And it has a 2660 liter tank. It does 9 meters wide. It's a really good option for a planter under 100 grand. You really can't go wrong if you're using either of these. Then, if you got the money on top of it, obviously you can get into some of these big guys if that's the type of farm that you're doing. But for this tractor, 150 horsepower to pull this thing, and this one, 180 horsepower. Again, you're using a medium tractor. It's just an all around really good value to use either of these on your farm. Now, the next thing I just wanted to kind of go over real quick, because it doesn't really matter and there's not a lot of options in here, but it is the fertilizer spreaders. Now, you obviously have a lot of choices, or you have a couple choices when it comes to fertilizing your fields. You can use a sprayer. There's a bunch of different sprayer ones. This backpack sprayer is great. It's only 30,000. It does a 24 meter working width. This is where you're gonna have to put liquid herbicide or fertilizer in. If you're dealing with weeds and you need some sort of a dual purpose unit, I mean, this is a great option. This 30,000, this will fertilize and you can deal with the weeds with this. It is a really good option if you don't want to buy two different implements. What I personally like is this fertilizer spreader, the ZATS 3200. It's awesome. It's awesome because it has a 42 meter working width. Now, if you need something that needs to do lime as well, and it all depends on kind of your farm, but this fertilizer spreader is really good. For 25 grand, 42 meter working width. If you're doing some sort of a series or just gameplay in your own that you're trying to make the money back real quick, you can buy this unit and go do a couple fertilizing contracts and it'll pay for itself very quickly. This unit will go on just about any medium-sized tractor. You have to watch just if it's a really small medium-sized tractor, sometimes you need a front weight because it can get a little bit heavy, but for 25,000, this is an awesome unit. Now, also, that being said, if you're really on a budget, this $2,000 fertilizer spreader, you cannot go wrong with. It is a really great option. 2 grand. Yes, it only has a 14 meter working width and a little bit smaller of a tank, but you can still do some fairly sized fields with this spreader, and it's just a really good option. So when it comes to fertilizers, if you're not trying to go some sort of like regenerative farm type route where you're only using manure or slurry or something like that, both of these are a really good option. If you need something where you can do lime, this is a really good option. If you've got the most massive fields ever, obviously you can get into something like this, but you're gonna need a really big field before you need 10,000 liters of fertilizer. I promise you that. So both of these are really good options. But if you want a two-in-one that will both fertilize and deal with weeds, I would go with this little backpack Mega 1200 liter. Okay, and we might as well keep going while we're on fertilizers and dealing with weeds. Basically, of all of it, if you've got the weed setting turned on, my favorite implement when it comes to dealing with weeds is this RotoCare V 12,400. Now, this is a great option as well too. This little Puller 600. It's a 6 meter working width. It does 60 horse. That's what you can use any tractor in the game really to pull this thing, and 6 meters is fine. The reason I like this RotoCare, this 12, they're the V 12,400 the most, 36,000. It's a really simple way to deal with weeds. You get a 12.5 meter working width, and this thing will pull at 15 mile an hour, which really is fast. Like when you watch this thing roll across your field, when you look at it compared to planters or even something like a disc harrow that'll go at 11 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour is fast. This thing will take care of weeds really, really quick. Now, If you look at something like this, this Aerostar Classic Triple XL 2400, well, yeah, it's 24 meters working width, right? So it's double the size of this, but it only pulls at 7 miles an hour. So really, this is 67,000, almost 68,000. You might as well just pay 36 and you're going to get the field. You're going to get almost just as much field done for like close to half the price. So when it comes to weeds, I really think this one's the best. It's also a hoe unit, so it can kind of get the weeds done on an earlier state. If you plant a field and it's going to tell you that weeds are growing, you're able to use this piece of equipment right after you plant and it'll deal with weeds. You won't even see them pop up. It's a really great option. I look for this in every gameplay series where I have weeds turned on. And if it comes through on the stores and you get it at 30 or 40% off, you can be paying 26,000 for this. Like, it's an unreal piece of equipment, really good value, low horsepower to use, good working with, amazing working speed. Rotocare V, this is the one I would pick. Okay, moving right along. There's some of these options that I'm going to skip just for now. I'm going to kind of come back to them at the end and just go through them quickly. There's one more thing that I kind of want to hit where I chat on a bit, and that's going to be your combines. It's going to be your harvesters. Now, again, you already know my school of thought. You already know where we're going. We're going to be going down. We're going to be looking at different elements within the unit itself and kind of what is the best value. Now, personally, the first thing I look for is how much does this thing hold? Really, the amount of horsepower that it has doesn't matter. It might matter a little bit. You don't want to have a really tiny horsepower combine with the biggest set of headers that you can have, but generally speaking, it doesn't really matter. What I look for the most is how much does it cost? How much does it hold? And if you are on a budget and you're just starting out and you're looking to get your very first combine and maybe your farm doesn't have, millions of dollars to spend on this New Holland, this Massey Ferguson is a really good option. 104,000 and it'll hold 8,000 liters of grain. This is a really good deal. If you go just to the very next one, this Claus, it's over 100,000 more and it holds the exact same amount of grain. Between these two, to me, it is an absolute no-brainer. I would pick this little Massey Ferguson any day. The horsepower doesn't really matter. Even if you keep going along and you keep implementing that thought process, like if you look at this Massey Ferguson, it holds 8,600 liters and it's 265 grand. Is it really worth like 150 grand more than this one to get this one? I personally don't think so. And again, if you just keep going through and you use that thought process through everything, there's kind of just like 2 to 3 main ones that I would look for. The very first one is this Massey Ferguson. It's 104 grand. You get 8,000 liters. I guess next one you could be looking at would be this Case because you almost get 11,000 liters for 300. It's still pretty expensive, but if you start looking down here, this one's 381 and you get 14,000 liters. So for me personally, I'm looking for this one. If nothing comes on sale, but maybe this one pops up, I would look for it. This is a really good option to hold 14,000 liters for 381 grand. After that, it kind of doesn't matter. Between 740, 650, this one's 740. I mean, these both hold 20,000 liters. So it kind of doesn't matter once you've gotten to that point. But really, this Massey Ferguson and this John Deere S7, pretty good value. They hold quite a bit, and it'll do everything. But this little Massey Ferguson is a really great option. And just real quick while we're on harvesters, if you come into the headers, I'm always just looking for working width and price. That's basically it. For example, if you look at these two right here, these are the exact same. Like one's green and one's red. They're both 25 feet wide, 7.6 meters, 7.5. It's basically the same. And this one's almost 10 grand more. I really just look for something like this. This Massey Ferguson 25 footer, it'll clear a lot of field at one time. It's a really good option for 35,000. After that, they all basically go at 6 miles an hour, so it doesn't really matter. Like you're not gonna, this is why the horsepower of the harvester doesn't really matter because these headers will only go so fast. So these 25 footers, for if you're just starting your farm, are all fine. They're all fine, except I would just stick to these two, whether you got a green harvester or a red harvester. That would be my only determining factor. Okay, now that we've gotten done most of the main pieces of equipment or implements that I personally just think are kind of the best or the best value in the game, there's a few categories that we could kind of skim back through, and there's some that I'll just kind of touch on quickly. For example, all these root crop harvesters and pieces of equipment, I mean, this is going to be very specific for the farm that you're building. I mean, there's one option in this guy. So sometimes there's not really like the best, you know, if you go into the green beans harvester, there's one harvester. And if this is the type of farm you're building, this is the harvester that you get, you know. Um, Same with some of these other ones, and you know, the rice planters, all these things. For rice planters, these are a little bit slow. So what's kind of nice I've used on different ones is you could get a couple of these. Cotton harvesters, I mean, really, you just go back and forth. This one will hold 10,000 liters. I think the round bales are a little bit bigger that they make, like they hold more per round bale. I mean, this one's half the price. I would just kind of go with this case, but it all just kind of depends the type of bales that you want to do and all that stuff. Balers again, whether you want to do square or round balers, the only thing I would say with square balers that are a little bit nicer if you can afford it is you can continuously bale. So that means that when you're running over the windrow, you can just keep baling and baling and baling. You don't have to stop. With a round baler, every time a bale is made and it's going to get kicked out of the chamber, the whole tractor and baler's unit is going to stop. It's going to kick that bale out, and then you're going to keep going, which isn't that big of a deal. But I mean, if you can afford it, I kind of always like to do square bales just because of that continuous baling. But again, it's just personal preference. When it comes to mowers, tedders, windrowers, you can use the same process that I've given you on kind of everything else, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's the working width that you want to use based on the horsepower of the tractor. But I mean, even the most intense windrower only requires 120 horse. So some of these things don't really matter. It's just preference. Um, Again, with rollers, if you haven't played the game yet and you don't know, these rollers are massive. They're such a pain to drag around. Even if you have the biggest fields, it's kind of not worth it. This is the type of thing that I really look towards the mods to try and find good options, because these are smaller, they're cheaper, they're not great, but they're a good option. Some of it doesn't really matter. Um, One thing I'll say just real quick while we're doing it with plows, if you're needing to get a field in a plowed state, there's really two pieces or two implements that'll do it. I can't remember if spaders do. I'm sorry, I really can't remember if spaders do. I believe they can. They can be used instead of a plow. I think it might even say that. Yes, it can be used instead of a plow. So plows, subsoilers, and spaders will give your field a plowed state. Me personally, when I have to plow a field, I if I had to pick between base game implements, I would personally go with subsoilers. They're just a little bit easier to drag around. This one's only 205 horse. It's a 4 meter working width. Even your plows, I mean, this is a 4.2. These are a little bit more difficult to kind of drag around. The subsoilers are pretty good, and it's 20 grand. It's half the price. It's basically the same. This is what I would pick kind of over it, but again, it doesn't really matter. Same with like power harrows and stuff. If you want to have these on the front of your tractor, these require a lot more horsepower. Basically, what you would be doing is you would be putting these on the front of your tractor, and then you could have the planter and stuff right behind you. This way you could kind of cultivate and plant at the same time. It really just depends on how you want to run your farm. I don't usually do it that way. That's just me personally, because usually when I'm playing with seasons on, the field is harvested in the fall and I like to clear it right after. It's just the way I like to play the game. But if that's the way you want to do it and you want to use power harrows, all the power to you. Auger wagons, you can definitely use an auger wagon over these trailers. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's just personal preference. This one's a pretty good deal. Some of these are pretty huge, but I mean, this thing will hold 30,000 liters, 175 horse to drag it, 68,000. It's not a bad deal. It really just depends what you're doing on your farm. Sometimes there's not really a right answer, but for me personally, all the things that I gave you beforehand with the tractors, cultivators, disc harrows, planters, and things of that nature, I truly think are some of the best implements and pieces of equipment in the game. Make sure, drop in the comment section below what you think are the best. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you do disagree with me, let me know what you think is better. Let me think maybe where I went wrong. But currently, right now, with everything that I play, this is kind of what I think is the best. I definitely don't think that if you use the pieces of equipment I gave you, it would steer you wrong in any way, shape, or form. You'd be getting good value for your money and your farm would grow. So thanks again so much for watching. I am the Ultra Farmer. If you haven't done so already, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash that like, smash that sub button for me. And if you're interested in seeing any of the series that I have made, you can go to my channel. You can look at all the different gameplay series where we're building. We got a dairy empire that we're going on right now. We're doing canola and rice on another map. I have some older runs from FS22 of No Man's Land where we built a pretty big farm from completely scratch. So make sure and go check those out. And yeah, this is Ultra Farmer. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'll see you guys on the next video.